Hey there, Goa fans. Mark, aka DJ Solitaire, here with episode 6 of Retro Goa Explorations, my series in which I discuss and present some of the best tracks, in my opinion, from the 90s, favorites from the time when they were first released, right up till the present time. And today, at last, I am featuring first, I'm sure of several that I'll have in the series. First track that I remember hearing that was produced by the first DJ that really blew me into another dimension, and that was Ollie from Space Tribe, who I first heard that October 1994 party in Tokyo, that from which I really regrettably have no photos, just have the flyer. Uh, and I didn't know any of the music or any of the sounds, as I've said before. I couldn't really figure out what was going on. But I know that this track was around at the time because a month or so later, Jay, who was doing the Odyssey parties, as we've seen in previous episodes, he made me a mixtape for my birthday at the end of November, and it had this track on it. Now, Ollie's official Space Tribe biography stated that these tracks were made, his Space Tribe tracks with Simon Posford, there are four of them, that they were made in 1995. It was definitely 1994 because there was this one on that tape, and Jay was only playing off of vinyls as well. So it was released on vinyl by November 1994, and it came out on CD on this legendary Tip Records compilation, the first compilation, which I got in April 95. And I've got a really precise memory for some of these things. I mean, I remember just picking this one up and looking at the track list and seeing, oh, the Infinity Project, dude, Slinky Wizard, I know all these names, and Man with No Name, and then I saw Space Tribe. So at that point, I already knew Space Tribe because that name was on the flyer for that October party. But just to really have to clarify that at that time, Ollie was DJing. He was not doing live sets. He was not just playing exclusively his own music as he would later come to do. He was one of the DJs with the broadest range and really a whole array of sounds, and how he put things together was incredible. Not that I could really hear that at the time in that October 94 party, but I could certainly sense the vibe. Ollie had started making some of his own music in Goa. He had one of the first studios set up in Goa, I think around 92. But in 94, he made these tracks with Simon Posford, aka Hallucinogen. And of course, we will be getting to his music, most definitely. But, Simon was working as an engineer at Butterfly Studios, as we've seen with his work with the Infinity Project. But in this case, he's not just working as an engineer, he was a co-producer, co-creator of this track. And the sound on these early Space Tribe tracks is very different than the flavor that Ollie would develop on his own when he started making his own music, especially back in Australia. He did do at least one solo track, which we'll be exploring later on at Butterfly Studios. But this one is absolutely incredible. So Machine Elf has a title that's inspired by these beings that people who were on DMT trips would encounter, that seem to be these elves at this control panel, and with these carrying vials of viscous liquids and working at these control panels, who people on those psychedelic journeys would encounter. And so that's what the title's about. There's several spoken samples in this production that are contribute to that particular journey, and that are well placed and well timed. And there's just a lot of fantastic characteristics to this music, which of course we'll get into when I listen to it, and when we all listen to it, and I'll give some details while we do that. And of course, once I wrap up, I'll present the track on its own. So how about we listen? Let's give this a listen. Machine Elf by Space Tribe.
Visual contact
Powerful beginning.
firmly. request permission
to this part there. So we have this really dramatic beginning with the samples and that break, and then now all these wild sounds start coming in. Those kind of playful ones, and then this really powerful one that thunderbolt shooting down. And now this oscillating current coming up. Beautiful harmonic element, really key Goa music. Now the rhythm starts up. That light percussive element going with that. I love that playful sort of boing sounds. It's beautiful build-up that leads into a terrific break. Pulls back and then explodes. I mean, really mayhem, absolute chaos with this kind of thing, and really explosive energy. So we've got that harmonic element, and then that really driving upward element. And then this riff, that da-da-da-da-da-da-da, a very celebratory riff. Very, yes, we are here, yes, we are alive. And it pulls back a little bit. One of those more playful sounds. Very, the sounds are so evocative, and they are really meant to be otherworldly. There's nothing terrestrial about any of these sounds. Great build up here, and then that explosion again. Okay. So it's like these kind of really powerful sounds offset by really playful, quirky ones. This beautiful riff comes in. Something that sounds a little bit similar to one of the tip tracks, a bit like in Euphorica. Beautiful harmonic element. This light rhythmic percussive thing, and then a sort of playful sound. Notice a slight syncopation of the percussive stuff there. It builds up to another big section. Notice how organic the structure is, right? I mean, there's this whole storytelling to it. It's, it pulls back a little bit, then it builds up again. Now it gets really explosive again. Rubbery kind of fiber rock kind of riff. It builds up and then comes down again. And you've got that sort of atonal or sort of not harmonic stuff that's climbing along with the harmonic element together. And now we get this other kind of voices coming in. That sounds like a voice, and then this. Notice the creative pause there, where the main kick drops in, but the energy's still moving. And a great sample and break.
Journey into the next world.
Evocative kind of floaty shift. Another great sample. Notice kind of this floaty, meandering kind of quality. That momentum, just everything keeps on going. Great little noodling over there. Then this upper register there. The way, again, the counterpoint, the way all of these things are playing together. And then, absolutely, I mean, really like a complete cosmic carnival. Amazing. Another great sample there. The past is a thing of the past, something to think about when we're listening to older music. And listen to that beautiful harmonic. The riffs are very simple, but they're really creative in the way they evolve and the way the whole track is structured. There's another break coming up here. And then that driving riff comes in again. It's really got this kind of rubbery, bouncy quality to it, doesn't it? You feel like you're going to be shot into space on a catapult. And that celebratory riff. Now this riff is going to go through a little change over here. Again. This really exclamatory, celebratory, hands in the air. Another round. And then things are going to start to unwind. Kick comes out, you still have that rubbery sound, that lower stuff. Just kind of floats away. I mean, wow. It's just under 7 minutes, that track. Absolutely blinding. And BPM, just to remember, it's 140 BPM. Actually, I have a funny story about that. The last time Ollie was over at my place, I think it was probably the last time around 2018 or so. I forget what we were talking about. It was something about BPMs, and he mentioned something about the two tracks, about Geomatrix and Machine Elf, and he said, "Oh yeah, they're Machine Elf at 142 and Geomatrix at 144." And I was like, "No, actually, Machine Elf is 140 and Geomatrix is 142." He's like, "No, definitely Machine Elf is faster than that." I was like, "No, it's not." I knew because I enter all the data on the tracks, and I was like, "Let's pull it up on Tractor." He was just really surprised when he saw it. Oh, sure, it was faster than that, and it sounds it. And some of the other tracks that we're listening to, are under in the series, under 140, and they sound a lot faster. I mean, there's this incredible buoyancy here. There's power and depth while it's still uplifting. And I think it's this blend of different emotions where it's not like if it's powerful, it doesn't mean it's dark. If it's uplifting, it doesn't mean it's cheesy. So there's that celebratory riff that it's just a very, grounded harmonic, these chords and intervals that they're playing with that are just beautifully processed and go through these transformations. So it's like you start going through these transformations as you're dancing to all of this, and it's phenomenal. And then there's all the great spoken samples, and as I mentioned, when I did the Total Eclipse one, that Stefan Holdek had told me that they were very mindful about what spoken samples they use that was meant to put you in a certain frame of mind. And that's what we get here, visual contact, firmly established, request permission to land. And there's a journey into the next world. Then there's the past is a thing of the past, which is very interesting when we consider that, when the scene was really exploding at this period in the 90s. And 94 really was a key time, a key transformational time. I'm really happy I got in right there with this kind of music because it had enough of the complexity that some of the earlier stuff didn't, that it could really grab me. There really was that sense that you're on the edge of the future. The future was now, and it's always, you're just pushing the edge in that sort of in the moment experience of it. And then the past was the past. And it's all about how are we in the present moving towards the future, which is why Ollie later on, we had talks about this because I'm known for my interest in the music from this period. And that's not all I'm interested in. I really am interested in, what's the best new music also. But we talked about how, he thought that the retro scene is missing something like that because it was all about then what's the new music, what is it that people haven't heard, how are you going to give people a fresh virginal experience that's something they've never had before. And technically you can't really do that with music that they've already heard. And he said that also what's different about how people do retro sets now is, he said, in 94 you played tracks from that season, in 95 you played tracks from that season, in 96 you played tracks from that season, and there might occasionally be times, and I pointed this out to him, that he would play a track from a year before or something like that. And that was what he said, which I absolutely agree with as well. Right track at the right time. But the general trend was not that you were playing tracks from a 4, 5, 6 year range in a single set, whereas now, in a retro set, you're often going to hear tracks from 94 to 99. So he was, his belief was that it was really about that, what's the new wave that's coming, and the new wave of energy and the new wave of creativity and how this whole scene is expressing. And so this track, with The Past is the Past, and that real sense of explosive creative energy that I think really embodies the mood, certainly the way I experienced the parties at the time. And you saw a bit of that film footage of when Jay was playing Aliens when I featured the Total Eclipse track. And the parties were absolutely explosive and really, really high energy. And this track is just such a fantastic example of it. Really an all-time classic. And Ollie really was, the energy that he held when he DJ'd back then was different. Some similarities, but there was a different element because, of course, again, it was new for him, and he was a pioneer doing something that was very new. It was very different than what we might have heard from him in the last 10 to 15 years, when he was, and especially when he was primarily playing his own music. There was this real commitment, and which he always had, but there was just this newness and freshness and this fire that really lit up the dance floor, and everything just exploded. I'll tell a particular story once we get to this track that I remember him playing in London in '97, and it was a track that was a year before, and it was just, when he played it, it sounded different, and it was just that what he held, the full picture of this scene, that was so part of his being and integral, that he was absolutely in the right place doing what it is that he was meant to be doing. And this track, for me, absolutely captures all of that, even though when he DJ'd, he presented a much fuller range than just his own music. So this track is really one of my all-time favorites. Machine Elf by Space Tribe, absolute classic. I will sign off here and then just present the track on its own. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Visual contact firmly established. Request permission to land.
the next world.